a city erased in minutes, winds over 200 miles per hour, a mile-wide tornado, a hospital torn apart, and 158 lives lost. This is not fiction. This is Joplin, Missouri, 2011. On an ordinary spring afternoon, warning sirens echoed, but hesitation, routine, and disbelief created a deadly gap between danger and action. What followed was one of the most devastating tornadoes in modern American history, a storm so powerful it reshaped how the nation understands extreme weather, from the atmospheric setup to the moment everything collapsed, and the aftermath that tested an entire community. This story reveals how fast normal life can vanish. Watch closely, and if you want more real stories like this, hit subscribe and stay with us. In the late afternoon of the 22nd of May 2011, the atmosphere over Joplin, Missouri began to shift in a way that meteorologists had been quietly watching all day, as a volatile mix of warm, humid air from the Gulf of Mexico collided with a powerful surge of cool, dry air from the north, creating a dangerous setup that is often associated with the most violent storms in the United States. Forecasters at the Storm Prediction Center had already issued warnings highlighting a high risk of severe weather, including the potential for long-track tornadoes. But for many residents, this was not entirely unusual, as spring storms are a familiar part of life in the Midwest. What made this situation different, however, was the intensity of the wind shear, a condition where winds change speed and direction sharply with height, allowing thunderstorms to rotate and evolve into supercells, the most dangerous type of storm capable of producing devastating tornadoes. By mid-afternoon, radar signatures began to show a rapidly organizing storm cell west of the city, and meteorologists recognized the telltale signs of a system that could escalate quickly into something far more destructive. Emergency alerts were issued across Jasper County, and the tornado sirens in Joplin began to sound, urging residents to take shelter immediately as conditions deteriorated. Despite these warnings, a critical factor was already taking shape on the ground, as repeated alerts earlier in the season had led to a sense of warning fatigue, causing some people to hesitate or delay seeking proper shelter. Many homes in Joplin lacked basements or storm shelters, leaving residents with limited options for protection, often relying on interior rooms that offer far less safety against a powerful tornado. At the same time, the sky above the city grew darker and more ominous, with thick rotating clouds forming a visual signal that the atmosphere was reaching a breaking point. Local media outlets attempted to relay urgent updates, but the speed at which the storm was intensifying began to outpace the ability of some residents to fully grasp the severity of the threat. The combination of population density, limited shelter infrastructure, and human hesitation created a dangerous vulnerability that would soon be exposed. Meteorological data later confirmed that the storm environment on that day was among the most extreme seen in years, with energy levels in the atmosphere reaching values capable of sustaining violent EF5 tornadoes, the strongest category on the scale. As the supercell approached the western edge of the city, its structure became more defined, with rotation tightening and descending closer to the ground, signaling that a tornado was imminent. People who had not yet taken shelter were suddenly faced with a narrowing window of time, while others were still trying to interpret whether the threat was truly life-threatening or just another false alarm. The tension between scientific warning and human response became a critical element in what was about to unfold, as seconds began to matter more than minutes. In retrospect, this phase of the event reveals a stark truth about disaster preparedness, where even accurate forecasts can fall short if they are not matched by immediate public action. The stage was now fully set, with all the atmospheric ingredients aligned, and the city directly in the path of a rapidly intensifying storm system. What began as a routine severe weather alert was about to transform into one of the most devastating natural disasters in modern American history, and within moments, the line between warning and catastrophe would disappear entirely, pulling Joplin into a nightmare that few could have imagined, but none would ever forget. As the storm crossed into the western edge of Joplin, Missouri, what had been a threatening supercell rapidly transformed into a massive and clearly defined tornado, its shape widening into a dark wedge that stretched across the horizon and erased any doubt about the scale of danger unfolding in real time. Within minutes, the tornado intensified to EF5 strength, with winds exceeding 320 kilometers per hour, unleashing a level of force capable of tearing apart well-built structures and stripping entire neighborhoods down to their foundations. The sheer size of the tornado became one of its most terrifying features, expanding to nearly 1 mile wide, making it not just a point of destruction, but a moving wall of devastation that consumed everything in its path. As it advanced through densely populated areas, the tornado tore through homes, businesses, and public buildings with overwhelming speed, leaving residents with little chance to react once it was upon them. Entire blocks were flattened in seconds, with houses reduced to scattered debris fields and vehicles lifted, twisted, and thrown across vast distances as if they weighed nothing. One of the most shocking moments came when the tornado struck St. John's Regional Medical Center, a major hospital in the city, where windows exploded outward and entire sections of the building were ripped apart, forcing emergency evacuations under extreme conditions. Inside the storm, visibility dropped to near zero as debris filled the air, turning the environment into a chaotic and disorienting nightmare, where survivors struggled to understand what was happening around them. Power lines snapped across the city, plunging large areas into darkness, even before the storm had fully passed, while communication systems began to fail, cutting off many from receiving further warnings or updates. The tornado's path cut directly through commercial zones, destroying major retail stores and critical infrastructure, amplifying the scale of the disaster and compounding the challenges that would follow. Witnesses later described the sound as a continuous roar, louder than anything they had ever heard, a relentless force that seemed to swallow every other noise and signal the complete loss of control. The tornado maintained its violent intensity for an extended period, carving a path of destruction that stretched for over 35 kilometers, leaving behind a scar that would be visible for years. Cars were found mangled beyond recognition, some wrapped around trees or embedded into buildings, illustrating the unimaginable power of the winds at their peak. Trees across the city were not just broken but stripped bare, their bark ripped away in a clear indicator of extreme tornado intensity, a signature often associated with the most powerful storms ever recorded. Emergency responders who attempted to move during the event were forced to retreat or take cover as conditions became too dangerous for immediate intervention. The speed of the tornado's movement added another layer of devastation, giving many residents only seconds between recognizing the threat and being directly impacted. In some cases, entire families were caught in their homes with no viable escape, relying solely on whatever protection they could find within interior spaces. The storm's structure remained organized and relentless, showing none of the rapid weakening that might have reduced its impact, instead sustaining its destructive power across a significant portion of the city. As it continued eastward, the tornado left behind a landscape that no longer resembled the community that had existed just minutes earlier, with familiar landmarks erased and streets rendered unrecognizable under layers of debris. The scale of destruction was so complete in certain areas that it created immediate challenges for search and rescue teams, who would later struggle to navigate what was left behind. In those terrifying moments, time seemed to collapse, as the difference between survival and tragedy came down to location, timing, and pure chance. And as the tornado finally began to move away from the city, the silence that followed revealed a level of devastation that would shock the nation and set the stage for a desperate race to save lives in the aftermath. In the immediate aftermath of the disaster, Joplin, Missouri was transformed into a landscape of chaos and silence, where entire neighborhoods had vanished, and the scale of destruction made it difficult to distinguish streets, homes, or even familiar landmarks. First responders entered areas where navigation itself became a challenge, as piles of debris blocked roads and landmarks that once guided movement no longer existed. The priority shifted instantly to search and rescue, with teams racing against time to locate survivors trapped beneath collapsed structures, often relying on sound, instinct, and sheer determination rather than clear paths or reliable maps. Volunteers from across the United States began arriving within hours, forming an overwhelming wave of support that reflected both urgency and solidarity, even as conditions on the ground remained unstable and dangerous. Hospitals outside the impact zone were quickly overwhelmed with injured residents, forcing medical staff to operate under extreme pressure while dealing with shortages of supplies and space. In the days that followed, the confirmed death toll rose steadily, eventually reaching 158 lives lost, a number that placed this event among the deadliest tornadoes in modern American history and left a deep scar on the national consciousness. The economic impact also became clearer as assessments revealed damages approaching $2.8 billion, making it one of the costliest tornado disasters ever recorded in the country. Federal assistance was rapidly mobilized, with FEMA coordinating large-scale relief operations, including temporary housing, financial aid, and logistical support aimed at stabilizing a city that had been pushed to its limits. Amid the destruction, stories of survival began to emerge, offering brief moments of hope in a situation otherwise defined by loss, as individuals recounted how seconds and small decisions determined whether they lived or died. At the same time, a more complex and long-term crisis was beginning to unfold, as displaced residents faced uncertainty about where they would live, how they would rebuild, and whether their community could ever return to what it once was. Schools were forced to close or relocate, businesses struggled to reopen, and thousands of families found themselves navigating insurance claims, financial strain, and emotional trauma all at once. Environmental hazards added another layer of concern, as debris fields contained dangerous materials, and outbreaks of rare infections were later linked to injuries sustained during the storm, highlighting how the consequences extended far beyond the initial event. As weeks turned into months, Joplin began the slow process of rebuilding, with new construction projects aiming not only to restore what had been lost, but to create stronger and more resilient structures capable of withstanding future disasters. City planners and officials revisited building codes, emergency protocols, and public awareness strategies, recognizing that survival in such events depends as much on preparation and response as it does on forecasting. Community gatherings and memorials became a vital part of the healing process, allowing residents to honor those who were lost while reinforcing a shared commitment to move forward together. National attention remained focused on the city for an extended period, turning Joplin 2011 into a case study for disaster management, urban resilience, and the limits of early warning systems when human behavior and infrastructure vulnerabilities are taken into account. Over time, rebuilt neighborhoods began to take shape, and signs of recovery became visible, yet the memory of what happened remained deeply embedded in the identity of the community. The event ultimately reshaped how severe weather risks are communicated across the country, influencing improvements in alert systems and encouraging more direct and urgent messaging designed to overcome hesitation and doubt. Even years later, the lessons drawn from this tragedy continue to influence policy, research, and public awareness, serving as a reminder that the impact of a single storm can extend far beyond its physical path. And as the city moved forward, stronger but forever changed, the story of Joplin, Missouri in 2011 stood as a powerful testament to both the destructive force of nature and the enduring resilience of those who survived, leaving a question that still echoes today about whether any community can ever be fully prepared for a disaster of this magnitude. What happened in Joplin, Missouri in 2011 was more than a natural disaster. It was a turning point in how people respond to extreme weather. The storm is gone, but its impact still shapes emergency systems, building standards, and public awareness across the United States. Behind every statistic is a human story of loss, survival, and resilience that continues to resonate years later. This is a reminder that preparation is not optional when nature reaches its limits. If this story gave you insight or perspective, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful real-world stories.